Happy Sunday, everybody. Today we're going to look at a bunch of SD70MACs. Alright, so I've had quite a few of these in the collection for some time now. The black NS is relatively new and has changed my outlook on these things a little bit. So I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff on these, so this is going to be a bit of a long review, so buckle in and we'll just get started here. So we're going to look at the oldest two SD70MACs that I've had. These both have countless hours of runtime, and they've been a little bit of a test bench for the Kato frame. And currently I have the decoders pulled out of these, but originally the BNSF over here had a NCE decoder that I added after the fact, and this one I bought used and pre-weathered. It had a Digitrax decoder in it, and I'm not sure why, but I've had an issue keeping these two speed matched to each other for the longest time. And it's not like once you get them speed matched, they lose sync, or when they warm up they change how fast they move. It'd be more like I'd pull them out after several months or a couple weeks of not being used, and they would be slightly out of speed match, and that would mess with their performance a little bit. One thing about these SD70MACs from Kato is they don't like to be pushed through turnouts. Some people have some different takes on whether or not you want your faster engine running up front or behind. These particular ones do not like to be pushed. So coming into turnouts or out of a hill, they have a tendency to jump the front truck if they're being pushed. So if they're the slower model in your consist, you can't always get speed matching done perfectly. It is better to run these in the second engine position or if they're a little bit faster than the other engines, run them up front. Just something that I've noticed. They're relatively reliable for the most part. It's just one of those things, I don't know if it's the truck design or what, but all of them seem to suffer from the same issue. I have a turn on my downhill portion of my main line that goes into a turnout, and these absolutely struggle on that if they have a faster engine behind them. Something that I've also discovered on these, I believe if you are on the Microtrains website, they call for the low shank coupler. It does get it in spec, but I have had better luck, especially moving into hills and stuff like that. I have a relatively steep incline. The low shank coupler that is on this one tends to work better, in my opinion. It's a little lower than what spec would be. Let me just slide this engine out of the way. Ends up being slightly low, but I've had better luck with that than being slightly high like this engine. It seems like as you come into the dip, the short shank couplers dip down and these kind of dip up, and you get a disconnection when under load. So that's just something that I've noticed over lots and lots of hours of running these. If I was doing the Microtrains conversion, which you should, because the long shank Kato couplers that come with these look absolutely terrible, and these are much more reliable in my opinion, but definitely go for the straight shank. It is seems to work better for me. Moving back in here, we'll get these back in frame. The speed matching issue that I had between these two and some other engines, I haven't had with the TCS, and these two have been my use case test type situation. I have been running these a little bit off camera. I've been intermittently taking them on and pulling them off of my layout. They've been speed matched to each other. not to anything else. They have kind of a custom speed matching table so I could tell. But regardless of the period of time, and I've had them off for 2 weeks at a time, I have had 0 issues with them losing speed match. So I think that's going to solve my problem. I don't know why the Digitrax and TCS, which one was actually losing the speed match. I've had it happen a couple times with some other engines I had, and they were running NCE decoders, so I wonder if it's something in that. I made sure that it wasn't the motor warming up and whatnot there, and so yeah, I have made that decision that all of these will now be TCS. I'm hoping that once I get the TCS decoders installed in these, because they're still on order, that I will be able to before and after test them. I have noticed quite a bit of noise from this engine, and this one in the motor. And I thought it was normal until I got this one. This is a newer run, and that might be part of it, but definitely has a quieter gear train, and I'm wondering if some of the motor whine I'm getting is from the decoder. So I'm going to do a factory reset on this one at some point, get TCS in all of these, get them properly speed matched, and see if the motor whine goes away. And I will do a update video sometime in the future once I get some test runs on these. To be quite honest, this engine is wonderful for quiet running. I would rate these okay. They're acceptably quiet, but they definitely have a bit of motor whine. Another thing I wanted to bring up on these, Kato has done an excellent job getting these models to look really nice, and we're going to go ahead and jump into each one of these. These are different releases over the years, and there are little minute differences, and I haven't done some body detailing on a couple of them, so we'll have to overlook that. But I'm going to zoom in on each one of these and give you just a little bit of a look one at a time. This is an old executive era, and this was one of my favorite models, period. They're really rare to see in the wild, and I think it's really cool, and whoever had this before me did a pretty decent job weathering it, in my opinion. I need to still put the handrails on these. I have been waiting because I'm going to paint them at some point here. This is one that I did the weathering on. I think Kato did an awesome job with the paint on this one. This is the proper color orange, in my opinion. They also got the green pretty good. The trucks on these are super detailed and nice. The chain work back here is really good. Awesome job by Kato. I need to put some red paint on the fill here. Grill works nice as always. One thing I do like about the Katos is they get the fan shrouds really nice on these. One thing that I've yet to come across is a BNSF SD70MAC with the nose headlights. All of these are the roof headlights. That's generally what I see in my area, is the nose headlights, and I would really like to get my hands on a model. If anybody's seen one out in the wild, I would sure like to know where to get it. Now this one is the NS, and I got it because this is a later release of the SD70, and it has kind of the transition hood like you would see on the Aces, and that is the hood that I think really stands out and makes these look like really top quality engines. I love the look of this one. I wish I could get it and be an SF, but they never owned any, but the NS looks just as nice. It is definitely a new release. I think it was 2018 that this one came out. I bought it new old stock, and they definitely did a nice job on this one. I'm super impressed with how this thing looks in the black and white. This also has the wide radiators back here, and that's cool. I don't see that very often around here. So we've talked looks, we've talked performance. Probably time to talk a little bit of price. All of these have been picked up for various different prices, 2 of which were used, 2 of which were new old stock. The used price right now is kind of crazy because they basically are asking new old stock price, so I would stay away from used until the prices drop substantially. But especially if you're not super worried about road name or road number, you're looking at about $80 to $90 shipped to your door, and for a DC model, that's a pretty smoking deal. These are definitely suited for the beginner. As a single engine, they run great. They're set it and forget it. They can pull a lot of cars. They're relatively easy to program, especially now that I'm delving more into the TCS stuff. I definitely like the programmability of them. I think they're easier to use, and I like their light functionality. I would encourage even the beginner to spend that little bit more money, maybe to do the TCS, and you would have to, maybe I should do a decoder breakdown at some point in the future, but if you're at the $80-$90 range, $35 NCE board, it's $110 to $115 engine at that point, and that's a pretty smoking price point for the beginner. That is that excellent level that brings the beginner into the intermediate, maybe even to the enthusiast level at some point. That's what this engine is for, is to bring that beginner into that intermediate stage, because these are priced super competitively and they're excellent runners. They're not perfect by any means. Once you're in that intermediate level and you start running these in consists, they are pretty finicky with speed matching, like I said, and because there's so many different runs of these over the years, I believe this one's like 10 or 15 years old. There's lots of different motors that would have went into these things over the years, and it's not as easy as some of the new stuff where you just set some general values, you're pretty close on your speed match, and then you rock and roll. These require a little bit of time to actually go through and properly set up. There's drastically different start and stop voltages for these things, mid-level. It takes some time. Now, definitely go back and check my easy speed match video. It totally goes over this and will work just fine. Just know that these, depending on what run they came from, can be a little bit finicky getting speed matched to one another. As it comes to the intermediate, these things are a super smoking deal. You can slap a TCS in these and get them from $80 to $90 on eBay. That's, you're looking at a $130 really good running engine that will speed match pretty well to anything else once you get the finickiness out of it. They look really good for the intermediate level layout. They have a lot of mods that you can get for these things. They've been out for a long time. People make some cool stuff for these. There's even some neat things on Thingiverse that I've seen. But you do a little bit of weathering, and these look really nice on the layout. And for the intermediate guy, with good decoder in these, I'm not sure if sound I'm quite there yet, because that would push these into a whole different price bracket, and we're competing with Broadway at that point, and I don't know that the dollar figure really makes sense there, especially Pre-installed ones ask a big price point, and to put in your own requires a little bit of modification and time. I don't know if I'm quite there for the sound installed versions yet. They might be a little too high priced, and then they're looking for a different market, and I don't think the body detail is quite up to par for that market. So these, for the intermediate guy, are a definite awesome high-end decoder DCC engine. They really do perform well. They pull pretty well. They don't quite have the grunt of some really good back EMF engines, but for the price point, these are super on point for that. All right, a little bit long-winded, kind of all over the place as usual, but I gotta say, these are one of my favorite engines out there. Especially this NS with the newer cab, it really makes me happy. I'm an EMD guy, and I gotta have a lot of SD70s on my layout. So yeah, you're not gonna go wrong, especially if you can get these for a deal. You can find a DC version cheaper than 80 bucks. Probably should pick it up. It's gonna be awesome at that price point. If you're an intermediate guy running a couple of these, you're gonna really enjoy the pulling power they have. They're gonna look really nice doing so. Just go out and buy some. You're gonna really enjoy them. Yeah, there's not much else to say. They're just great engines. All right, everybody, thanks for stopping by. I will see you this Wednesday for hopefully a graffiti video. That should be kind of cool. And yeah, have a good weekend.